Welcome into the Triple Option. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, and of course Steven Simcox, our Wednesday wheel aficionado who sets up the wheel every week, and that's what we'll do here in a couple of segments. We'll do the wheel, which is Cowboys related today, as Cowboys training camp kicks off. And would you like to know a funny story about my emails this week when it comes to the Cowboys?
Always.
So I get an email a few days ago that says, hey, with the schedule of what the Cowboys are doing, and it says we're going to have to move the opening press conference to Saturday, even though training camp starts on Wednesday, and it was because Jerry Jones had this paternity issue that he was dealing with. And then, I don't know, I haven't gotten the new schedule yet, but I think they've moved that conference back up to Thursday because now he's there. He can be there, and everything's been resolved and moved on with their lives. So it was very weird. And then the Cowboys are not going to be like, well, let me tell you why.
Here's what happened.
You know why. There's a lot of the times in this comes in sports, and it happens with the Cowboys every so often, where you get we're not going to do this. And then they know that we all know why. And they know that everybody's going to, do their jobs.
Right.
But they might as well just put it, we're not going to have this. You all know why.
You guys are in the media. You guys know about the news.
Yeah, you know why this is happening. So
Well, Jerry's such a relatable guy. Who among us has not called in PTO because we got to take care of our paternity suits, these
that
things.
We've already paid millions of dollars out to over the years.
These things happen.
Yeah.
Sure. Y'all were there. Who was the player that was falsely accused of a crime or something?
Well, Lyle Collins, we were there when they signed him. But
there was that. But there was a returner, a special teams guy.
No, when Lucky Whitehead got all the whole story about the dog napping and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, we were there with Lucky Whitehead. Yeah. Weird day, man.
We were going to run we were running the Jason Garrett press conference live every day because I think it was at 3:00. So it was right as you and Smokey were going on the air. It was a great all right, here's 30 minutes of Jason Garrett or 20 minutes of Jason Garrett. Then we're right into the show and we off and running. And they kept pushing it back because, this Lucky Whitehead situation was going on. And then I think he finally went up to the podium and he couldn't really, he realized quickly, all the questions are going to be about that. And he couldn't really talk about it. So then they just bailed.
Yeah.
You got to love Cowboys camp.
It's funny because, when you have good relationships with media relations people, they'll tell you things you need to know. But with the Lucky Whitehead situation about this fake dog napping and all, whatever it was, and ex-girlfriends and all that, I just keep laughing because, you're so can you explain this to me? And they're like, I really can't. And it's not because I don't want to. I don't understand.
I just don't know what's going on.
I just don't understand what's happening. And, he's here. I don't think he's going to be here very much longer. He's got some things to deal with. And eventually Lucky Whitehead wasn't there. Here's a little known Lucky Whitehead story that I feel confident in telling now that it's well removed and maybe somewhat relevant because Zeke's back on the team. But Zeke had that girlfriend that was that caused him to get suspended. He made the choice he made, but that was that girl. And it was a very toxic, terrible relationship if you read the transcripts. So Lucky Whitehead was subsequently released from the Cowboys, and he signed with the Browns. He was also bitter at the Cowboys. This girl sought out Lucky Whitehead. They had a tryst, and she sent the pictures to Zeke.
All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that's how weird Lucky Whitehead was.
What a roundabout way to get revenge, too. Okay.
And then Zeke was like, okay.
Good for you guys. Congratulations, team.
Yeah. All right. He would not see her while she was in, she had sent him all these messages we've got to talk in Cleveland. He's like, no. Every time we talk, it ends up bad for me. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to see you again. I'm not going to see you. And then, I guess she had met Lucky I don't know. Like that whole thing it's very weird, or she knew of it. I don't know.
They crossed paths somehow.
It didn't take much for Lucky Whitehead to be like, sure, I'll do it.
There wasn't a big negotiation.
No, it wasn't like, hey, so here's the scheme. It was probably just like, hey, yo, all right.
Dudes rock.
Yeah. So
that was another whole thing. It was like every week we were on Zeke court watch.
Yeah.
It was like the injury report was Zeke's trying to get a restraining order against the NFL. He's probable. Mm-hmm. We think we can get a judge. To say no, you can't suspend him.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep going to, different courts until we can get that done. Nothing like the Cowboys, man.
And then, here's the thing: they should have just said, if we don't fight you on this, and you and I can talk about this behind closed doors, can we do 2 games instead of 4? Mm-hmm. Can we just do that? That's what they should have done. And been like, all right. Because, again, the situation was a little it wasn't black and white. It was definitely not black and white. What Zeke, anything that happened on his part to me is inexcusable. But I also think that, the situation, knowing all the details I know about it from the court case and then just being there, it was one of those things where you're like, man, this is a weird thing. If I was Roger Goodell, I'd be sitting there listening to it going, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that nobody denied anything that happened. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one of those things where anybody...
There were 2 separate stories.
It was pretty much the same story, but, either one of them thought it was the other one's fault. But they still wouldn't be like, well, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that, Mm-hmm. It was just a weird real thing. So, let's talk Ace. We'll talk Cowboys later in the show about their. I'm going to buy or sell
Cowboys storylines.
It's Cowboys storylines later in the show.
So we got players needing contracts.
Yeah, players needing contracts.
New players, new coaches. I'm
guessing there's probably going to be something on there about Mike McCarthy.
Big year for him, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my hot take.
It's important for him. We'll talk about that. But also, we want to talk about SEC and Big Ten, or ACC and Big Ten Media Days. Steven, Big Ten Media Days have kicked off. Mm-hmm. DeShaun Foster was just at the podium. And I find this interesting about UCLA. Every time... and this was a criticism of Jim Phillips the other day. In spite of, he threw some fastballs. Mm-hmm. He had a really good outing on the mound the other day. But I would say the one mistake he made was at football media days, being like, the ACC is still great at basketball. Yeah, but we're talking about that at basketball media days. That's in October. We can talk about that in October. Yeah. Now your football conference is in an existential crisis. Don't bring up basketball as a way to save it, because we know. Yeah,
it's not driving the bus here.
Yeah, that was where he lost the no-hitter, right there. That was where he threw a big old,
he hung a curveball.
Hung a curve and lost the no-hitter. Otherwise, an excellent start. 8 1/3 of, really good quality ball that he had the other day. But UCLA is out there, and they talked about entering the Big Ten, and even at football media days, they're like, well, we have, championships in 23 sports or 123 championships or whatever.
Right.
Well, not many of those are in football, if any of them. And they like to roll that out, and they'll be like, Mark Spitz went here. He was the greatest Olympian until, was he an Olympic football player? No, he's a great swimmer. And then Michael Phelps broke his records. John Wooden, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, all basketball. So they like to kind of hide their football in the middle of all their other stuff, which is admittedly elite. A large chunk of American Olympic success comes from UCLA and that athletic department, but a large chunk of college football history has left it behind and doesn't involve it at all. It's funny to me that they that's their tact of let's talk about everything else. And when they're like, well, how's football? It's fine. It's good. Fine.
Our coach just took another job as an offensive coordinator at a bigger school. But other than that, it's great. No, you're right. It's misleading. Also, it really doesn't land now because, not that it would matter that much, but it's not like they're carrying the banner for basketball either. Like, this is not the UCLA under John Wooden that was the premier basketball program in the country. So it really is just the ancillary sports. And it sounds a lot like Stanford and Cal, like when they were kind of left in the dust. And they were like, well, we're really good at Olympic stuff. And everybody's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
we can't wait for that every 4 years.
Yeah.
Super pumps. Thank you.
Hang those banners in your hall. And, we're really good at academics. Well, Greg Sankey doesn't really care. But that's great that you guys are doing research. We appreciate that you guys are working on that stuff.
Thanks for all the drugs. We appreciate that. But if somebody came to Greg Sankey and be like, hey, did you know that at Auburn they just cured paralysis? And he'd be like, oh, I guess that's good news. Does that mean that more football players can like do things? Awesome for paralysis. Good for them.
Great.
But where's my money?
What's the QB battle looking like?
Yeah.
No, it's a wild thing. Also, one weird thing about that DeShaun Foster opening statement, I guess as someone who watches these things all the time, we kind of take this for granted, but it looked like, Paul, he didn't know he was supposed to make an opening statement.
Oh.
Like, he got up there and he kind of gave a few facts. He talked about championships, and then after about 30 seconds, he was like, yeah, we're coming to the Big Ten. We're in LA. Like, he just started naming things that were true.
Yeah.
And then eventually he was like, all right, I guess that's it. But I don't know if they didn't prepare him well or what the deal was.
You know what's funny about that? Most coaches don't really want to make an opening statement. They just want to get right to the questions and get it over with. So I've been to many press conferences where, especially for bowl games or events like this, where the moderators, like, the coach will make a brief opening statement, and then we'll take questions. The coach will sit down and be like, we're happy to be here, fired up about it. Or, like, even after, like, a bowl game, like, hey, it was a big win for us or a tough loss. And then, like, the moderator's like, well, you can keep going. And the coach is like, I don't want to.
No, I got places to be.
The fact that I'm even here, even though we won by 38 points, the fact I'm even here is contractually obligated.
Let's get straight to it, guys.
Yeah, let's get into it. Like those kind of things. Now, there are coaches who love press conferences, and some of them are great coaches, and some of them are mediocre coaches masquerading as great coaches. But most of them are like, all right, ask me your little thing for your little thing, and then
your story, yeah.
Well, then I'll move on. That's how it is. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he just wanted to get right into it.
Right.
How's Ethan Garber's? The transition, considering it happened so late, has it been challenging? Recruiting, all those things. That's the interesting story about DeShaun Foster is he was thrust into duty when Chip Kelly's like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to be a head coach anymore, and I'm going to go take pretty much the same money to go to Ohio State and take what is, I guess, a lesser job to call plays against eventually UCLA.
Right. Well, and that program's got a lot to prove because, I feel like geographically, yes, Oregon, Washington, USC, very different than the rest of the league. But from a program standpoint, kind of makes sense that they're going to be playing big-time teams in the Big Ten. It's not a huge shock to the system. UCLA, it just sounds very different.
Yeah.
Because there's just not that prestige there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting part about Big Ten Media Days is that you have to address certain things that are new. They're going to be playing a lot of games on every week, pretty much, save for I think one, right, Garrett?
I believe it's one. Yes,
one or two. They don't have Friday night games, but for most of the season, they have Friday night games. This is a huge adjustment. Some teams have 2 games. A lot of teams have 1 game. Several teams have none, and I do like that Tony Petitti addressed that it's just not a coincidence. It wasn't like, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan don't have a Friday game?
Shocking.
We'll circle back to that. Like, that was weird. We didn't even, you get to doing these things and you start moving around and
we just put it in a spreadsheet.
We put it in the spreadsheet. I guess we left out a value. It was, we are not going to play Friday night games in those 3 places. And I get it. Sure. But I also get the other 15 teams, especially ones like USC and Oregon going, hey,
what the heck?
Come on, man.
You knew what you signed up for, though.
Yeah,
you knew
it
what
is.
you were getting into.
It is. And look, you're new, but I do if I'm Michigan State, I'm like, I won this league 8 years ago. What? It wasn't that long ago. We were in the playoff, man.
That's right.
Did
we mean something.
Yeah, we've done something.
I honestly forget they were ever in the playoff.
Yeah, we're not Iowa here. They can play on Fridays. What else is there to do in Iowa City?
Iowa can play on a Tuesday. It's going to be the same thing either way.
Yeah.
It's going to be a 20-7 just slugfest.
I respect any conference commissioner that just tells you, yes, this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 teams that are going to get what they want because they're the 3 teams that have essentially secured the financial boon for all of this.
Right.
We're like, the reason we have all this is mostly because of these 3 right here. And Penn State's new. Penn State. Here's the thing about Penn State. When they had to pick and they've been in the league for over 25 years now. When they had to pick Penn State's rival, like every year rival, they were like, they still don't have one. They still don't have one of a natural every year rival, which I think is kind of strange after being in a conference all that long, but it was such an old conference that you can't just be like, hey, Indiana, we're rivals now. You know, like that's what the Pac-12 tried to do with Colorado. So the Colorado and Oregon, and they'd be like, this is a rivalry. And they're like, is it?
There's nothing there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Garrett, has the LSU A&M thing that they tried to force, has that worked out at all?
I mean, I would say yes and no.
They played some good games, obviously.
It's more so, this is just my perspective speaking, it's more so annoying to lose to them. I wouldn't necessarily call it a rivalry. They're just obnoxious to lose to.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and Penn State's kind of in a weird situation, too, because they're sort of that second tier. So it's like, I guess the natural first pick would be either Michigan or Ohio State, but that's never going to replace the game. And so then it's, okay, who's next? And I guess it just hasn't worked with, like, Wisconsin or someone like that. But, yeah, fascinating times for the Big Ten. I do appreciate that honesty as well. It's very similar to when Jimmy Johnson, and I don't remember the name of the player, but Paul, he cut that player who, like, fell asleep in a meeting.
It was John Roper.
And they asked him, well, what would you do if Emmitt Smith fell asleep in a meeting? And he said, I'd get him a pillow.
Yeah, I'd get him a pillow, I'd turn down the lights, and I'd shut up.
Yeah, Yeah. Rules are different for different people in different institutions. It's just how it is. But, I mean, yeah, Friday night games, it's a cool concept, and it'll do well on TV. And you get to keep your the schools that are kind of bringing the most power to the table happy. So I guess it all worked out for them in this upcoming season in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. I mean, but I do think I appreciate it when people say, like, I want that because a lot of time, like even Greg Sankey is cagey about things when he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I appreciate Tony Petitti and he doesn't make a whole lot of appearances. He's, especially when it comes to conference expansion, he's pretty much just said, hey, look, we're happy where we are. We've got 18 teams, for God's sakes. Like, what do you want from me? Like, they're not going to talk about if teams are in the water until they're in the water.
Sure.
Like, if there's a team in the water, they might go after them, and likely, depending on who it was, I believe they will. So,
does the expanded playoff take pressure off Ryan Day to win the game against Michigan now? Or is it still just as important in your mind?
He said today that getting to the conference championship is still important because you want that first round bye. And you want to be one of the highest ranked teams. So, yeah, it still has that importance. The thing is that for the fans, they need to realize if let's just say, the one game he loses all year long is Michigan, and you win a national title, it does not matter anymore that he lost to Michigan.
Right.
Whereas before, losing to Michigan essentially
kept you out of the playoff.
Kept you out of the playoff or keeps you out of a national title game in your history. Now, that wasn't true 2 years ago. They were both in it. Ohio State, lost to Georgia, and Michigan lost to TCU. So, again, that game didn't even matter then, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that was the precursor of like, hey, this is 12-team playoff. If it's one of the only games you lose, it's probably fine. I know you want to win it, but it's not going to make or break your season like it would. But you still, like, I think that's the thing the fans need to get used to is it does not make or break your season like it did in the past.
Sure.
You can still go win the national title, and maybe even pretty easily if you lose to Michigan. But, yeah, that's something I think they're going to have to get used to because if he loses to Michigan and loses in the semifinals, like he could lose to Michigan, win the Big Ten, and then lose in the semifinals, I think there's going to be some heat on him.
Sure.
And it's not justifiable at all. None of the heat on Ryan Day is justifiable. None of it. The guy has maybe like 6 losses as a coach at
If that.
Ohio State. He's had 3 or 4 in conference. Like, 3 of them are to Michigan, but he's beaten everybody else. I think he had one or 2 other rando losses and then a couple of bowl losses or postseason losses. But God in heaven, what do you want? Ryan Day would be unemployed. If he got fired by Ohio State for not doing that, he would be unemployed for 17 seconds. As long as it took for him to walk out of the meeting with the AD.
That phone be blowing up,
Yeah, and his agent to call and be like, hey, would you like to go
here? Yeah.
Would you like to go to this big school? Yeah, sure.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Would you like the job at UCLA? I mean, which is again a little bit further down, but like, all right, do you want that job? Lincoln Riley's going to, tired of recruiting and he's going to go to the NFL. Do you want USC? It's all yours. Just say yes. Oh, this SEC job just came open. You want that one? Sure thing.
Ohio State just got – I'm sorry, Gary, go ahead.
I was just saying, come on down to Baton Rouge. We'll take it.
Yeah. Ohio State just got too used to dominating that series. And so now it's this huge – I mean, it's obviously one of the biggest rivalries in sports, but, I think they got so accustomed to that success that it's been a huge shock that suddenly they're in a rut with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's very true with Ohio State. They got used to their wine and cheese, right? They were absolutely, right up there, the upper crust and winning all the time. And then Michigan comes in and knocks them off their pedestal and they don't know
what to do,
how to react. Yeah. The stock market crashed and they had no backup plan. Their whole life is Schitt's Creek. I think, oh no, what's happening? Well, really, it's not all that bad.
You're just living in a new place, right?
It's fine. Now it's not going to be that bad. And look, I get it. I mean, every year that Florida State loses to Florida or Miami or Clemson is a year that I'm less happy and a year that I'm fine, if the zombie apocalypse happens.
It's good to have priorities.
I'd be ready. When they lose to the Gators, I'm like, listen, if a zombie busts in the door, I'm going to let him bite me.
What's worth living anymore, you know?
I'll tell you this, though. I would, if the zombie apocalypse happens, I'd rather be a zombie than have to fight every day.
That's true. That is a lot. That's a lot of mental exhaustion, just being on your guard all the time.
Here's the thing. You always know what you want to eat. Just one thing. It's really easy to organize things with friends.
It's true.
Just kind of walk out in the street and go, what are you doing? And I'm just walking around here and going to go eat a brain. Mm-hmm. I mean, no arguments with your wife over what are we having for dinner tonight? What are you hungry for?
Don't have to worry about texting people back,
No. You just walk outside and find some other zombies and walk in the same direction.
They don't talk about the pros of it.
They never do. They never do. They never do. It's always like, well, I've got to be ready and I've got to have all this stuff. Like, man, that's a lot. There's no bill. You know what you don't have with zombies either? Bills. Mm-hmm. You know who doesn't pay taxes? You're always worried about the tax man. There's no taxes on zombies.
All right. And I'm not Nick Offerman. I'm not going to go get propane and, get my generator going and figure out how to live in a house.
No.
Once that power grid goes down, it's like, well, good luck, everybody.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna Will Smith, I Am Legend this thing. No, I'll make a zombie dog and I'll be fine. We'll be all right. We'll fine.
Figure it out. Yeah.
I don't have a brain or a soul.
Yeah. How much consciousness do you really have?
No, none. I'm just walking in aimlessly looking for brains. It's my whole day. I don't have to change clothes. No laundry. No, I don't need to fill up the car with gas. I can just find one and sleep in. I don't know if they even sleep.
Yeah, it seems like they're up all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that seems to be the prevailing research through all the shows I've seen.
Dr. Catalina.
Yeah.
PhD in zombie knowledge.
Zombieology.